All right, so as we look over the J and D baby blue Strat, we know we have some problems with the output jack. But if you look at the bridge, the saddles don't have those high Allen key height adjusters, so that actually is pretty smooth, so that'll be good. Of course, the strings are slack as all get out. We've checked the volume, we've checked the tone, three-way position switch. You can see the pick guard is a little dirty, but I'm guessing, judging from what I'm seeing right here, that the plastic has not been pulled off yet, which is actually a good thing. The body is dirty, but I don't know if it's in really bad shape. The frets, though, I was kind of surprised to see this. The frets look like they're relatively clean, and the board looks like it's in good shape. I mean, it's got a little bit of an overhang with a couple of the frets, with some fret sprout. Of course, the artificial bone, i.e. plastic nut, doesn't show any signs of the strings binding in it. If you get the strings loose and you do that, you can sometimes feel the bind. These old string trees are what they are. There's a little bit of play with some of the tuners that we'll have to look at and see if that locks it down. And I have no idea if these are knots or not. I can't see that clearly. But this is where we are to the beginning. Now you may wonder what the plans with this one are. And the plans are really simple. We're going to take this pick guard off, and we are going to replace this pick guard with the pick guard from little Dita that's already wired, and hopefully they will just drop in as direct replacements. My bet is that the CNZ Audio ST Minis are made on the same line as these J and D guitars minis, and I'm guessing that largely by similarity in the headstock and the frets, number of frets, the scale length, and it looks, when you put them side by side, it looks as if these are all basically built on the same line with a different stamp on the headstock. So anyway, that's where we are, and it's time to begin with the fun. Now, because it is a simple pick guard swap, we're just going to go ahead and pop this ground off right here and make our lives easier later, hopefully. So of course the next option we have, or the next thing to do, is to take this football mount out and inspect it for damage, for one thing, because we're having some problems with it. So we're going to look at a couple of things while we have it out. The first thing I'm going to look at is how a plug fits in it. See, it doesn't move around too much, which makes me wonder if there isn't a faulty connection or connections that are bumping into each other. It doesn't appear to be that present either. So maybe it's just a matter of this sliding around. If it was set in where, here it is, the way that it was positioned, which would be this way down, you can see that the hook is on the bottom, which means gravity is pulling the jack off of the connection here. So when we put it back in, we flip this over so that gravity will leverage the end of the tip of the plug onto this, the hot portion, and so that should solve that problem. And if not, we will figure out something to do. We'll punt at that point. But for right now, let's go ahead and get these leads off. So now that the bridge is unhooked and the output jack is unhooked, theoretically, this should just slide right out, pull right through, and there we are. All right, now it's time for the moment of truth. We see if the pick guard that came from little Dita is in fact a direct replacement on what will become Little Carolina. Will you looky there? Even the pickup mounting holes match up. You know, I've always said I'd rather be lucky than good, but some days it seems I'm both. So this is a hot wire off the switch, which will go to the output jack. And of course, it will need a ground to go with it, and I will need a ground to go into the tremolo cavity. It appears that they're close in length, so one necessarily wouldn't favor the other, but I am going to go ahead and let's see. I believe that one was the one that went to the output because it has a shorter bit of exposed wire, so we'll push that through here like so, and then this other ground will go through the body like there we go. Let's move on to the output jack. Your tip here is the hot signal, and the solder point for the hot signal is opposite the hot signal. This is your collar point, and that is your ground. Now, as you can tell, there's not a whole lot of wire exposed because the person that did this before me knew what they were doing. So let's see what I can do and see if I've gotten any better over a period of time. All right, now this is what I was explaining about the way that gravity affects these football style joints. If you put them in this way, so that prong has its back to this, when the plug is in and pointing down, it will actually knock the plug against this part, and that actually helps hold it in. That way you don't have to bend it too tight. Now it's loose as a goose, so we need to tighten that down. So now we've got our plug reoriented, resoldered, board swapped. So let's see if it makes the clicky clicky sound. Still a little loose. Hold that, young man. Rear pickup. Nope. Yep, everything's wired correctly. And as you can hear, no grounding issues. Button it up, clean it up. And as we have learned, sometimes things don't always match up perfectly. And so we sometimes alter our things to make them fit a little better, just a little hint of better. Now there was some question about the cleaning solution that I used, in one of the episodes because I kept calling it Mother's, I kept calling it, McGuire's or whatever. This is what it is. It's Mother's Speed Waterless Wash and Wax. And as I mentioned before, that's a whole lot of W's. But ultimately, what it does, since most of these guitars were kind of built around the premise of automotive paint, and the cheap ones still very much are, just a little bit tends to clean things up very, very well. And as long as we've got it all apart, we might as well do that, especially on the silvery things. And the spots that we can't reach normally or easily when we have a full pick guard and everything on it. Now, I'm not entirely sure that this isn't still wearing its plastic, but since it's not really showing too many signs of that being a bad thing, I'm not going to get too close looking and peel it down. I did notice one fret right here that seemed to be having a little bit of difficulty with hanging over. There we go. Excellent, as they say. All right, now up here, I mentioned that we had some problems with loose tuning pegs. Couple of reasons for that. As far as shifting around here, all of these screws look to be tight, but just to make sure, tight. I don't ever like to, oh, that's a little loose. I don't like to ever force anything that deals with wood, because it's a real easy way to go through the back if you're not careful, like some I did on the back of this guitar. All right, so those all look like they're now in decent shape. So we've still got a little bit of play. So what we're gonna do is once again return to our sockets. Nope, went the other way. If I didn't have ADHD and paid attention. All right, that one needed a little bit of a turn. That one needed a little bit of a turn. That one needed a little bit of a turn. That one needed a little bit more of a turn. And that one needed a little bit of a turn. As you can see, still got some play in that one. Oh. All right. Well, if it's going to be persnickety, have I mentioned that I really don't see well? Mr. McGoo. There we go. Now that's more solid. There's a thing called situational awareness. Now, what that means is that in any given situation, at any given moment, you are able to take in the information of what's going on around you. You're able to assess potential threats or hazards, and you're able to make informed decisions based upon that information. Let me tell you why that's important. Let's say you're an airline pilot and you're trying to land a plane. And so you are focused on that runway. You're watching your altimeter, you're watching your pitch and yaw and whatever those things that pilots talk about whenever they do this with their hands. I know pilots, I'm not a pilot. But anyway, as you're coming in, you've got your flaps down, you've got your angle right, you've got everything good on approach. You've got your wind speed and all that kind of stuff. You are focused on that runway. Now, that's great to have that focus. But if you're not aware of your situation, your surroundings, you may not be aware that there's another plane trying to use the same runway at exactly the same moment. Now, you may ask, what does this have to do with mini guitars? You ever get focused on a buy that you just couldn't let go? Make sure there's not a plane trying to use your runway. Now, if you watched last night's program, you pretty much are aware of how my logical side worked out how to get these tones using a guitar that I already had and the pedals that I already had, using the setup that I already had. All it took me was a good half hour of working through the requirements of a Jaguar, what it means, and focusing most importantly on the sound that I was looking for, that strangle circuit. But if you know me at all, you know that that's not it. You see, that doesn't give me a mini Jaguar, and I already had the perfect name picked out. Cubby. Isn't that a great name for a mini Jaguar? And look how cute the picture is. Yeah. Situational awareness. Always be aware when someone else is trying to use your runway. First, let's see how the landing started. When in doubt, go to YouTube, and that's where I went. I wanted to learn as much as I could about the Jaguar. What makes a Jaguar a Jaguar? Why are people interested in Jaguar? Why is it considered to be the epitome of old Leo's design before he sold the company to CBS and then began his Music Man, Ernie Ball kind of journey into G&L guitars that I love so much? Why do these advertisements pop up in the middle of these crawls? But anyway, as I went through the information about the Jaguar and went down the YouTube rabbit hole and watched more and more videos and became more and more aware of what makes a Jaguar and trying to figure out if you can build a mini Jaguar and what makes the tremolo so special and why the rhythm circuit is important. Yeah. This may seem like anathema to some folks, but I had already picked out the frame that I wanted. It was going to be the CNZ Mini. I already have one. I don't have the Daphne Blue, and that would be the one that I would set up for the Jaguar. Now, of course, I'm going to have to fabricate a brand new pickguard. Not entirely an issue. I just have to buy more than a few blanks in order to be able to mess it up. But it has all the rest of the stuff that I want. Most importantly, it has this back cavity for a tremolo block and springs. I would be able to fit most of the controls under a pickguard this size, and if I was good, I would be able to cut the pickguard to the same size. Yeah, I'm not that good. And that's where the wiring would come in to play, and it would be more than a little difficult. So I would probably go with a kit. That's what a kit costs on the left. But if you want it already put together, that's what a kit costs on the right. It's not the best price that's available, but it's the one that has all the stuff that I wanted. But, I can swing that. If you're going to do it right. Yeah, do it with me. You're welcome. All right, so here's a pair of genuine Fender pure vintage parts, 65 Jaguar. They're used, but they're available from a reputable site, and we all know Steve from Decatur, Texas is an all right, uptight, upstanding citizen, right? Yeah. Hi, Steve. Well, if we're going to go with the pickups, we might as well go with the perfect tremolo setup. The original Jazzmaster Jaguar tremolo system, available, of course, on the Fender website. Yeah, look, it's in chrome. It's all shiny. Wonder how you mount that thing to the guitar. I'm sure it's just a direct swap. Well, before I go ordering parts, I might as well go ahead and see how to set one of these things up. So I check out Offset Guitars, how to set up the tremolo system. And look at that cavity. Why, that's an incredibly large cavity. Matter of fact, it's so large, that's going to mean seriously altering the body of that CNZ audio. You know, I might as well switch guitars. Go with one of the Fender Mini Jazzmasters. Save $30? Seriously? For a used one? All right, so let's do some ciphering and figure out about how much this is going to cost. First off, I'm going to spend about $40 in plastic because I'm going to burn through those pick guards. I'm going to screw stuff up. I'm not going to be happy with it. It's going to take me a while to get the hang of the technique, and it's going to take me even longer to get it right. So we're looking at $40 worth of plastic there, easy. You figure $100 for the pickups. I don't mind buying them used. We all know that Steve from Austin, Texas is an all right, uptight, upstanding guy. Steve. So we're into 140 there. So we get the wiring harness that's already pre-wired. I don't need the pick guard that it comes attached to, or even if it just comes loose. It's going to keep me from having to solder, drop solder on the guitar, all that kind of stuff. So right now we're looking at $355, which is pretty much right about where my most expensive custom build Mini is. So this is going to be the most expensive one. Big deal. It's a Mini Jaguar. It's Cubby. I mean, Cubby's worth it, right? So now we still have to buy the guitar. I'm looking at 180 plus tax for CNZ Audio online. I've already got one of those fantastic guitars, not willing to sacrifice it for the cause. I could get a used Mini Jazzmaster for maybe $20 or $30 less. But I'd really like to go ahead and use the CNZ, partially because I just really feel loyal to that brand for some reason. I like the kids that set it up. I say kids because I'm an old man, but I also like kind of the way they handle business and what some of their profits are going to. So that's worth spending a little bit of extra coin for me. But yeah, so we look at around 200 there. So I didn't push plus, I pushed. So 215 plus 200. So yeah. All right. The tremolo, if I'm going to do it, I might as well go ahead and do it all the way. So that tremolo arm that we were looking at was 315. So yeah. That's more than I have in what I actually paid for my GS Mini from Taylor. It's more than I actually paid for my used Fender American Standard Strat. That would make it the most expensive guitar in the room. I feel like somebody else is on my runway. Now here's the frustrating thing. If I could play a 24-inch scale, something just 2 inches longer, I could go ahead and buy one completely assembled, the Squier Classic Vibe 70s, even swapping out the pickups. That's still $300 cheaper. All right, so let's run through this. I can't buy the full-scale Squier. I can't play the daggone thing. I can throw out the $315 tremolo. That would make it the most expensive Mini in the room, but not the most expensive guitar in the room. It still wouldn't be a genuine Jag in the eyes of the beholders, but I really don't worry too much about the eyes of the beholders anyway, more about my own ears, which brings me ultimately kind of back where I started. yesterday at the beginning of that episode. It's the tone. And I already figured out how to get that tone using the equipment that I have on hand, using the guitars that I have on hand. I got it all worked out in my head. I just don't have that thing, that guitar, that cubby. But if I'm going to have to adapt, why not get really creative? Or recreative, as the case may be. And the build shall continue with the right guitar.